If an actor is typecast, he should count his blessing.
Your own personal life as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes me much more aware of an implied level of accountability. I can aspire to sainthood. That's my goal.
When Jonathan Roumie stepped into the sandals of Jesus for The Chosen, he didn't just act, he became the role. Every look, every tear, every word felt real. But during the emotional Passover scene, something happened that no one saw coming. Jonathan collapsed, right there on set, and what followed left the cast speechless and in tears. Was it exhaustion or something way deeper? But one thing is for sure, this moment wasn't in the script. So what really happened that day? Join us as we uncover the miracle behind the scene that changed everything. The scene that left everyone in tears.
My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one will snatch them out of the Father's hand.
It was supposed to be another day on the set of The Chosen. Cameras, ready, costumes, perfect, script, checked. But once the director called action, something strange started happening. Something no one could plan for. And at the center of it all was Jonathan Roumie, aka Jesus. The scene was the Last Supper, one of the most emotional and sacred moments in Christian history. But for Jonathan, this wasn't just about sitting at a table with bread and wine. It was about carrying the full weight of what that night meant: betrayal, sacrifice, and deep, divine love. That's no easy thing to do. And honestly, Jonathan didn't want to just act it. He wanted to live it. From the very beginning, he approached it differently. This wasn't just another scene to memorize or perform. He had people praying over him. A spiritual director walked him through the emotional and theological depth of it all. He wasn't showing up as an actor. He was stepping onto what felt like sacred ground. But what did Jonathan do to really bring meaning into the character he played? Let's find out. Before filming began, he sat in deep prayer. He took time to reflect, not just on the lines, but on the meaning behind them.
God loves the world in this way, that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life.
For him, and for many Christians, especially Catholics, the Last Supper is the heart of the faith. It's the beginning of the Eucharist, the moment Jesus gave himself fully, not just to the disciples, but to the world. Not just a goodbye, but a gift. Not just food and wine, but the promise of eternal love. So, yeah, no pressure, right? As the cast gathered around the table, something started to shift. The room got quiet. The mood turned heavy, but not in a bad way, in a holy way. Jonathan wasn't reciting lines. He was asking God to help him feel what Jesus must have felt that night. And guess what? That prayer was answered in ways no one saw coming. People started crying, not because the script said so, but because something was happening, something real, something raw. Actors, crew, everyone could feel it. The energy on set wasn't just dramatic, it was sacred. Tears flowed, silence filled the room. And for a few powerful moments, it didn't feel like a production. It felt like worship. And this wasn't just a one-take miracle. The scene took days to film, days of emotion, days of prayer, days of carrying the weight of something that changed the course of history. Jonathan said he had spiritual firepower behind him, and he meant it. People were interceding for him non-stop, because this wasn't just storytelling. This was entering into a moment that still moves hearts 2,000 years later. Jonathan Roumie also said that he had to be in the right headspace, mind, body, and spirit. This wasn't just another dramatic scene for Jonathan Roumie. It wasn't about hitting the mark or delivering a line with the right emotion. This was different. This was heavier, bigger, sacred. When he stepped into that Passover scene as Jesus, he was stepping into history, into something deeply spiritual that no camera could fully capture. Jonathan knew this wasn't just about reenacting the Last Supper. It was about carrying its weight. what it meant for Christianity, for humanity, for the story of salvation itself. And he didn't treat that lightly. From the very start, he treated it like holy ground. Prayer, preparation, spiritual direction, it was all part of getting ready, not for a role, but for a moment. He had people praying for him, guiding him, encouraging him. And when filming began, it was clear this wasn't just acting anymore. Jonathan describes it as a miracle, and when you hear what happened, it's hard to call it anything else. For a few powerful minutes, actually, several days, the lights, the cameras, the lines, none of it mattered. The crew faded into the background. The production noise went silent. All that remained was the gravity of what they were portraying, the calm before the storm, the goodbye before the betrayal, the sacred meal before the cross. Jonathan didn't try to fake Jesus' emotions. He prayed to feel them. And somehow, what he felt passed through everyone else in the room too. There were no scripted tears, but they came. Cast members, crew, and people were crying. People were stepping away, overwhelmed. And not because the script was moving. It was something else, something raw, something real. Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen, said he couldn't even call it cut. He was too caught up in the emotion of it all. No one planned for that kind of atmosphere. It wasn't just a good performance. It was something sacred. The scene they were filming was Jesus sharing the Passover meal with his disciples, the same one that would become the foundation of the Christian Eucharist. But before they even began filming, the cast sat down for a full Passover meal. Rabbi Jason led them through the traditions. They listened. They learned. And slowly, they began to see every symbol on that table, every piece of the ritual, was pointing forward, not just to freedom from Egypt, but to the cross. Even Dallas, who grew up honoring pieces of the Passover in his own home, though not Jewish, said it never truly clicked until that day. Being in that room, watching the cast sit in silence and awe, he finally felt the weight of what Jesus and his disciples must have been feeling. It wasn't just dinner. It was a farewell. It was a sacrifice. It was the beginning of something that would change everything. And here's what makes it even more wild. Even people on set who didn't believe in Jesus, who weren't religious at all, felt something shift in the air. After filming, they came up to Dallas stunned. "I don't know what that was," they'd say, "but I've never experienced anything like it." There were no dramatic speeches, no high-powered emotional tricks, just a table, some bread, some wine, and a deep, almost holy stillness that seemed to land on everyone like a blanket. That's the thing. This wasn't about changing scripture or reinventing the story. It was about experiencing it with fresh eyes, with open hearts. And it worked, not just for the viewers, but for the people making it. The set stopped feeling like a set. It became a sacred space. Jonathan says he's eager to see how the scene will be cut across different episodes because there was just too much to cram into one moment, too many emotions, too many layers. It couldn't be rushed. It had to be honored. And while the crucifixion comes later, maybe in the next season, the emotional ground was already broken. What they captured wasn't just a scene, it was a spiritual moment, a moment that stayed with everyone long after the cameras stopped rolling. No one expected it, but no one could deny it. Something happened during that Passover scene, and if you watch closely, you might just feel it too. But this is not all that happened behind the scenes of The Chosen. Keep watching to find out more. The behind the scenes of the Passover filming. As The Chosen steps into its 5th season, the connection that this is spiritual suddenly feels more alive than ever. Sure, you can plan the shoot, rehearse every movement, fine-tune the lighting, but there are some moments you simply can't script. You don't make them happen. You just watch them unfold. This season moves fast. The pace picks up. There's barely time to breathe between miracles and mounting tension. The cast? They're running on emotion, grit, and prayer. Trying to keep up with the spiritual weight of what's happening on screen is no small task. Jesus feels different this season. He's quieter, more focused. There's an urgency in him, and the cast feels it. The shift in his energy pushes everyone to go deeper. No one can just coast through their lines. This isn't just acting anymore, it's soul work. Elizabeth Tabish, who plays Mary Magdalene, opened up about filming one of the most emotional scenes ever written for the women of The Chosen. And we're not talking about some teary monologue. We're talking about something deeper. Jesus sitting back, not teaching, not healing, just listening, letting the women serve him. To get through that scene, Elizabeth leaned hard on spiritual support. She had people praying over her. Her spiritual director was right there through the shoot. And still, it shook her. Filming stretched over days, and by the end, she was so overwhelmed she was physically dehydrated from crying. That's not just method acting. That's something spiritual breaking through the camera lens. This season pushes the cast to feel what Jesus felt, to move with the emotional weight of the story. The motivation was never, make this look good. It was always, make this real. And nowhere was that more true than during the Passover scenes. Before shooting The Last Supper, the entire cast sat down with Rabbi Jason Soyle, not for rehearsal, for an actual Passover meal. Real food, real rituals, real silence. They went through every part of the tradition, the prayers, the posture, the blessings. They weren't just memorizing movements, they were entering into the story. Even Dallas Jenkins, the show's creator, said something clicked for him that day. He grew up honoring parts of the Passover, but sitting there, watching it unfold with that cast, in that room, he finally felt it. This wasn't a party. This wasn't a loud celebration. It was quiet, heavy, holy, a remembrance of blood on doorposts, of death passing over, of rescue and sacrifice. And now, that same blood, this time from Jesus, was about to mark a new kind of freedom. It wasn't just a powerful moment in Jewish history. It was the bridge to the cross. Paras Patel, who plays Matthew, said the connection hit him like a wave. No warning, no cue. Just pure emotion that didn't come from the script. He talked about how Jesus' blood, poured from his wrists, from the thorns, mirrored the blood the Israelites used on their doors. That realization crushed him. This wasn't just a nice parallel for the sake of storytelling. This was truth. And it made the scene feel alive. Like they weren't acting anymore. They were stepping straight into something eternal. Some cast members cried during filming, and they couldn't even explain why. The emotions were too big, too deep, too holy. They weren't just filming a story, they were living it. The filming of those Passover scenes stretched over 6 days, long nights, shoots that lasted until 3 a.m. One actor said it felt like time had slowed down completely, like they weren't even in the modern world anymore. Every detail mattered: the matzo bread, the hand movements, the order of blessings, the way the table was set. It all came together like a sacred puzzle, creating a moment that felt frozen in time. Noah James, who plays Andrew, remembers being completely overwhelmed during filming. He didn't have to force a single emotion. The room did all the work for him. Something unseen had entered the space, and it left no one untouched. The cast, whether raised Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, or even non-religious, walked away different. One actor, who grew up Greek Orthodox, said he had heard the story of the Last Supper his whole life, but filming it, living it out moment by moment, it changed him. For the first time, the story became real.
I took a look around and I thought, the next time I see this place, I will have completed the Last Supper in the Garden of Gethsemane. And I was overwhelmed with emotion. I was like...
George Harrison Xanthus, who plays John, admits that he wasn't ready for what hit him on set. Not really. The tears, the silence, the weight of it all. No one was. What started as a script suddenly turned into something sacred, and everyone felt it. For Xanthus, one of the cast members, and the rest of the cast of The Chosen, stepping into their roles during Season 5 was like walking barefoot on holy ground. You could prepare lines, block scenes, run takes, but nothing could prepare them for the raw, emotional undercurrent that came with filming The Last Supper and those final days. Jonathan Roumie, who plays Jesus, didn't cry on cue. No one told him to. The tears came naturally when he looked around that table and saw the faces of his fellow actors, his brothers, in the scene. That was the moment it hit him. This was what Jesus saw. This was the goodbye, and it broke him. For the cast of The Chosen, the commitments they made towards this season definitely was a lot, but more commitments for Seasons 5 is proving to be tougher than ever. What are these commitments? Let's find out. The commitments of this season and that of the upcoming one. This season wasn't about playing roles. It was about standing in the shadow of the cross, about letting the sacredness of the moment take over. You can't fake that. You can't direct that. What happened in those rooms, in those scenes, was a miracle. Plain and simple. Roumie himself said reading the script for Season 5 brought him to tears. Not because it was sad, but because he felt the weight of what was about to unfold. He knew this season would push him to his limits, not just as an actor, but as a believer. The pressure of portraying Jesus in his final days wasn't something you could just switch off after filming. It stayed with him. And just when things feel overwhelming, divine timing showed up. But one thing is for sure, this season especially, hit hard. Like, really hard. The schedule, brutal. The emotions, off the charts. The weight of what was coming, the crucifixion arc, was like a shadow that stretched across every single scene. Even the lighter moments had this quiet sadness under them.
We're doing because of the weight of the story, the importance of the story. You know, it's not fiction, it's truth, it's fact, it's spirit and truth. The word, the word made flesh.
The whole cast felt it. You couldn't run from it. You couldn't laugh it off. Jonathan Roumie, who plays Jesus, said it best. Some scenes you can't even rehearse. How do you prepare for something like carrying a cross? Physically, emotionally, spiritually? You can't. Not really. You just show up, cracked wide open. You let it break you. Because if it breaks you the right way, maybe just maybe, it reaches someone out there who really needs it. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't go away with a nap. That's the kind of exhaustion Jonathan started feeling by the second half of Season 5. And no, it wasn't just the long hours or heavy robes in desert heat. It was something deeper, something spiritual. See, when you spend months embodying someone who gives and is still rejected and misunderstood, it chips away at you. And Jonathan wasn't just playing Jesus, he was walking with him toward the cross. The crucifixion hadn't even happened yet in the script, but it felt like it was breathing down every scene. It was in the silence, in the glances between the disciples, in the parables. Jonathan said it felt like grieving something that hadn't happened yet, but knowing it would, and choosing to love anyway. And that kind of grief sticks with you. And it wasn't like they were filming in one cushy studio either. The cast went from dusty back roads in Texas to sweeping desert plains in Utah. Some days, they were melting under the sun in thick robes, but sometimes, just sometimes, the discomfort gave way to something sacred. Jonathan remembered one day vividly, a scene where Jesus preached on a hill. The wind picked up, the sun hit the grass just right, and suddenly, everything felt still. The extras, hundreds of them, stopped talking. No one moved. He delivered his lines into complete silence. Later, he said it didn't feel like a production day. It felt like a pilgrimage. And those moments, they don't leave you. Because The Chosen isn't just a show anymore. It's something bigger. It's a movement. Jonathan sees it up close when he meets fans, at premieres, meetups, or faith events. He meets people whose lives have changed completely. People coming out of addiction. People who found faith again after years in the dark. People who watched The Chosen with loved ones during their final days. And sometimes they walk up to Jonathan trembling. Not because they're starstruck, but because something inside them recognizes what he represents. And Jonathan? Sometimes he hugs them. Sometimes he just listens. Because what do you even say when someone tells you a scene helped them forgive an abuser or want to live again? It makes everything heavier and holier. And no, the set doesn't feel like a church service. No one's passing communion around between takes. But there is a sense of reverence. Like everyone knows this story means something. There were moments, especially around the Last Supper and Jesus entering Jerusalem, where things shifted. Something sacred landed on the set, and no one could ignore it. The actors stopped acting. The emotions weren't planned. The tears weren't part of the script. But they came, and they kept coming. Not from stress, not from overwork, but from something no one could explain. Something that felt too big for words. Jonathan said those moments changed him. That this was never just about playing Jesus. It became about meeting him, about walking beside him, about carrying a little piece of that cross in his own way. Because you can't fake this stuff. You can't method act your way into sacred ground. You have to live it. And that's what happened on set. What they captured on screen wasn't just history coming to life. It was hearts being changed in real time. The actors didn't just remember the story, they stepped inside it. And when the cameras stopped rolling, they weren't the same. Not one of them. What are your thoughts on these behind-the-scenes miracles? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Click on the next video displayed on your screen. You will enjoy it.